Breaking a short time ago, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man mistakenly deported by the Trump administration to El Salvador, is back on U.S. soil to face charges related to transporting undocumented migrants. The federal indictment came weeks after the Supreme Court ordered Trump officials to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return. The president, his lawyers, and cabinet members had resisted bringing him back. Here's Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who went to visit Abrego Garcia in El Salvador with our colleague Nicole Wallace.
I've said repeatedly, this is not about the man, Abrego Garcia. This is about his constitutional rights and really the rights of all of us, that if President Trump and his administration can trample the rights of one person, the rights of all of us are at risk.
Lisa Rubin is back with us, and joining the conversation, Andrea Flores. She is the Vice President of Immigration and Policy Campaigns at Forward.us. Welcome.
Welcome, Andrea. What did you make of this indictment, and how do you interpret the backwards nature in which this has all transpired?
It's clear they're trying to reverse engineer reasons why they claimed for months that they couldn't bring back Mr. Abrego Garcia. So they said from the very beginning there was no way that the El Salvadoran government would allow them to return. That was always a fabrication because ICE wrongly has deported people in the past. And we know now that the truth was revealed. They also brought back someone else who was wrongfully returned this past week, a man to Mexico. But this is really just like a first step. We have to see it that way. There are over 200 people who are being indefinitely detained under very suspicious legal circumstances. And so they're showing that they can do it. And now they're also trying to fabricate a reason why they didn't.
I am struck, Lisa, by the insistence of so many government officials in this matter who took such a hard edge, such a demanding edge against Mr. Abrego Garcia. And in a particular way, our Homeland Security Director, Kristi Noem, who made it very clear, under no circumstance, I do not see any circumstance in which Mr. Garcia will return to the United States. But here we are. And to Andrea's point, it upends this legal system in a way, just back and forth as we've seen in trade issues and other issues. This administration is all over the map. They push in one direction until they can't push anymore. How do you see the case against Mr. Abrego Garcia actually moving forward when it seems, to the points Andrea made, this is all kind of made up? They were very clear in one space, and now all of a sudden there are all these legal issues that, that touch on due process, which was the initial argument, right? That's what everybody's saying. Due process, why are you taking it? Okay, so if he's a criminal, put him through the system. Now they want to do that.
Yeah, it's a bizarre reversal, Michael, particularly given the positions that they have been taking in the civil litigation that Abrego Garcia's lawyers brought for literally months now. And I just want to remind you and our viewers, it was April 10th that the Supreme Court said that the U.S. government must facilitate his release and return to the U.S. so that he could exercise those due process rights that you were just referring to. But I want to pick up on something that you just said that is really meaningful to me, because I think the way that government officials from the White House, press secretary to the president himself, to Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, to her spokesperson, Tricia McLaughlin at the department, and even Pam Bondi, the Attorney General today. That's not the language that we usually use in this country when we're speaking about people that we expect to be criminal defendants, because you don't want to pollute the well. You don't want to taint the jury pool. And here they have spoken about Mr. Abrego Garcia repeatedly, including up to and through today, in a way that assumes his guilt and makes it very challenging for him to get a fair trial, given the national celebrity that he now inadvertently has and never asked for. So if I were his lawyers, one of the things I would make a big deal out of is the fact that the government has acted in a way here that has deprived him of an ability to get a fair trial in the Middle District of Tennessee, where he has now been indicted. You don't talk about somebody you expect to indict as if it's already been decided that they're a criminal. That's not your decision to make. That's a decision for the jury of his peers. That is as fundamental to our system of democracy and our rule of law as almost anything else that I can think of, Michael.
You know, Glenn Ivey essentially said the same thing earlier today. We don't need to play it, but he goes on to say that how the Department of Justice did this is backwards. And when he prosecuted MS-13 cases, they didn't deport them first. You prosecute them first, you convict them, then you deport them. Just so folks at home understand what Lisa is talking about, this is what some of the indictment says. This is what it says about Abrego Garcia having transported firearms but didn't charge him with such. In addition to transporting undocumented aliens, their word, not mine, and firearms at times, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia occasionally and simultaneously transported undocumented aliens and narcotics purchased in Texas for distribution and resale in Maryland. Though the Department of Justice states that the smuggling of firearms and narcotics is a fact, they haven't charged him with that in the indictment. They also say, over the past 9 years, the defendant has played a significant role in an undocumented alien smuggling ring that has resulted in thousands of undocumented aliens being illegally transported into and throughout the United States, including members and associates of MS-13, a recently designated foreign terrorist organization, as well as unaccompanied minor children. The motion goes on to say that he could be sentenced for up to 10 years. Again, they're stating these things as facts, Andre, but they're not. Where you prove these things are in court. And so the indictment, how this usually works, you get an indictment, you lay it out in the indictment, and then if the Department of Justice has a press conference, they are reiterating what's in their indictment, not bringing in new information like we saw from Ms. Bondi and her friends today. But due process is important, and it seems as though Kilmar Abrego Garcia is not going to get that.
That's right. It is not. What has happened to him is incredibly unfair. First of all, he was wrongfully deported by the U.S. government, sent to a terrorism confinement center. You know, he had the president of El Salvador saying that he was never really asked to return Mr. Abrego Garcia. At least now he will be in the United States. He will be represented by lawyers and be going through our normal justice system. He's been going through an extra legal system this whole time. And hopefully that will allow him to present the actual facts of his time in the United States. We don't even know the facts. They've used the entire, you know how monumental this is. They've used the entire platform of the White House to tell his story before he was even on U.S. soil to defend himself. That's very significant, and it's just eroding such trust in the government in terms of the DOJ and in terms of our immigration system. How are Americans supposed to have trust in our immigration processes when they say you cannot bring back somebody wrongfully deported, and then they brought him back months later? And so what's real and what is not real in their mass deportation campaign? Everybody should be looking behind the scenes now, because they're showing in their goal of getting as many people out as possible. It's similar to DOJ, right? They're breaking everything, even in the immigration system. And now they're bringing people back and saying, wait a minute, now we want to deport them again another way. That's not how the law works. It's not how it should work. And I think the public is really focused on this case. And I think Democratic leaders have to keep pointing out it's about all of our due process rights.
I will say, yes, that is the point, because the administration wants us to make this about Kilmar Abrego Garcia's alleged criminal past. This is about the rights, due process. If he goes through the due process and it comes out on the other side and a jury and a judge say he did something, that's the process. The process is not Stephen Miller and his little minions yelling at the ICE department.
Well, there are other officials here that I want to make sure that we highlight, and we had teased some breaking news, and I want to make sure we get to it. Lisa, Ben Schrader, the chief of the criminal division of the Middle District of Tennessee, where this indictment was filed, resigned around the time it was entered under seal. This is something from one of his announcements earlier today. After nearly 15 years as an assistant United States attorney, I resigned as chief of the criminal division at the United States Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Tennessee. It's been an incredible privilege to serve as a prosecutor with the Department of Justice, where the only job description I've ever known is to do the right thing in the right way for the right reasons. Coincidence?
I don't think so. There are other outlets tonight reporting that they have sources telling them definitively that Ben Schrader resigned because of this case. And it's not just around the same time. I want to put a finer point on it. Ben Schrader's post came on May 21st, where he said, earlier today, I resigned. May 21st is the date stamped right on that Abrego Garcia indictment. It was only today that it was unsealed to the public. But he was indicted on the same day that Ben Schrader resigned. Telling the public that the only job description you've ever known, and I'm reading from it, is to do the right thing in the right way for the right reasons, and not explaining why you've resigned, not telling anybody what job you have next. And indeed, I've been on Ben Schrader's LinkedIn page. He does not have, according to his LinkedIn page, a new place of employment. That suggests to me, obviously we can't definitively say, that suggests to me that this is not coincidence. And I hope that people will continue to report on whether he and others of his colleagues objected to the objectives of the Department of Justice in trying to, deport first and prosecute later. That's not how it's supposed to work.